you want to save money on your trading card purchases, we have a promo link over at 50cards.shop. Enter the promo code ATNIGHT to get 5% off your order. Hi, hello, I'm a guy in a place. Nah, it's just me. It's Atlas. I am back with another deck profile. So, Gramgrace, which is what we're doing today, is a Keter Sanctuary deck that focuses on calling a dude to the back row, which you can then swing with. So it's a 4-attack deck, but it's also a deck with a lot of power. Like, even on your turn 3, it allows you to hit at like about 35k if depending on what's going on. I picked up Gramgrace as a playset like months and months and months ago before they announced these deck sets, and then I picked it up and have been playing around with it at my locals and have been really enjoying myself. So I guess we'll just get into the deck profile. So here we go. So you may notice that I'm not running the ride line that comes in the deck set, which is this like the grade 1 is like draw and then discard when rode upon, and then the grade 2 is like you could Soul Blast instead of discarding for ride line, which fine I guess, but I ended up switching to the Blaster Javelin and Blaster Dark thing because I think it allows you to be more aggressive early, which Gramgrace tends to settle into a bit of an equilibrium where like every turn you're hitting for 4 attacks and they're big, and that's kind of it. So putting up a lot of damage early allows you to put more pressure on the opponent. This is a deck that also draws a lot, so the whole like, oh, freaking, I'm afraid I'm gonna like commit too much and then you'll be fine, trust me. The Big Daddy himself, Grandma Grace, or Big Mama, I guess. So his ability the Persona Ride affects the back row also, which is a big freaking deal. Having your front row be swinging for an extra 20k per turn will shave a lot of cards out of the opponent's hand because this is standard and shield doesn't exist, apparently. The other effect allows you to draw, counterblast, soul blast, draw, call something in the back row center. It can attack from the back row and get plus 10k. So you have a lot of targets that you want to call back there. And even then, calling like something like a grade 2 or a grade 1 will still hit pretty good numbers because it'll be swinging for like 18 or 25 or whatever. We'll get into that in a second. And then at the end of the battle, that's something from the back swung, you put it in your soul and draw a card. So whatever you do, you will always be drawing 2 extra cards a turn. I know that it's technically a wash just because you lose the thing in the back, but because it allows you to get soul and all that good stuff, this is kind of your only counterblast. Aside from Blaster Dark himself and one other card here, you don't counterblast in this deck at all. Originally, I thought I was going to have to run the grade 2 that's like, end of battle that it was boosted. You put it into soul and countercharge 1, and I have used it exactly 1 time. So she got taken out. So getting into the grade 3s that you want to call off of Gramgrace. Let's start with the intended one. So Fernbale is, after it swings from the center and the back, you discard and your Vanguard gets 10k in a drive, which means that your Vanguard is now hitting for 23. This is before Persona Ride is even a thing, and is swinging for triple drive. So that can be a lot of pressure. You also discard off of that, which means that this little bugger, Wayward Therapy Angel, that you often see in Youth Perch, is an important card because you can discard it off of Fernbale, and then now all of a sudden she's a 10k booster in the back. So very nice card. She can also be called off of Gramgrace himself just because it's calling it by an effect and not normal calling it. So pretty solid card. I have 2 copies of Gwendolyn, who is a Battledore still, which means that when she's swinging, the opponent has to guard with 2 or more cards at the same time. This is typically something you want to leave in the front row, but she's also fantastic off of Gramgrace's skill. I'm honestly considering dropping the one copy of Fasado I have for a third one of her, because she's just that good. This deck persona rides like hell. You have a way to recycle your persona rides. You run the cup, the what's it called? The Gradle, Gratias Gradle, which means that you will pretty often be able to get your persona ride off in this deck because you go through so many cards. Speaking of what's it called? The recycling persona ride. This is Lockety. So in the back row, rear guard, at the end of your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Gramgrace, you can kill her and then choose a grade 3 unit from your soul and put it into your hand, which means you can recycle a persona ride. You can get anything that has already swung and has gone into soul. You can get Fernbale back. You can get Gwendolyn back to then swing again on the next turn. You have one copy of Drilling Angel, which allows you to, maybe you had to soul blast something. You can use it to put your Fernbale, Fasado, Gwendolyn, whatever, into soul, and maybe call that thing off the top of the deck. More likely Fernbale than anything else. But it's mostly just to put the grade 3 in soul, because you run 3 copies of Languishot, which is a 15k booster if you have a grade 3 in soul, and this deck does that very well. 2 copies of Spiral Cutie Angel. So this is why you don't run the ride line that comes with the deck set, is because you want to use her effect to cycle more, so you see more cards. And then if you persona ridden, you on play counterblast, look at top 2 and take one of them, and that's just so good. So love her, she's great. And then 2 copies of Glorious Storm Dragon, which allows you to bottom deck an opponent's column, which is great because this deck doesn't really have control outside of this. So this is good for getting rid of problem cards that are giving you the business. In terms of grade 1s that I haven't already covered, you run 2 copies of Maple. This is what you typically discard off of either Fernbale or your ride line. Ditto to Wayward Therapy Angel. But when you persona ride, which is often, I might add, you get to call her in the back, and then she's a 13k boost, which is fantastic. So that means that a lot of these are hitting great numbers on their own. And then in regards to the triggers, so like I said, this deck draws a lot, which means that you are running 7 crit and a full set of fronts just for shield, and then the crits are for pressure. You don't really need draw triggers in this deck. So you have that, and then in regards to the over trigger, I wasn't running the Keter Sanctuary one just because this deck sees so many cards that the Keter OT will often deck you out. So instead, I went with this one because it allows you to have more pressure, usually with Gwendolyn, right? Like you put the restand ability onto Gwendolyn, who then is able to shave 2 or more cards out of the opponent's hand, especially if they're close to death, right? That can completely eviscerate someone's hand. Got your PGs, got your Sanctitude. So that's pretty much the whole deck. I know that was fairly short, but I'll talk a little bit about like combos you can do. So obviously on your first turn there, you ride Javelin, go into Dark, afterward call the top card of your deck. There's only 2 ways for this to fail, which is if you see Gradle or Sanctitude. This being in mind, I've honestly considered taking out Sanctitude for the 4th copy of Zeal Dragon, but I think it really depends on how popular Bastion Grade 4 is with the resurgence of his suites of support, and also how popular the Drajuled Grade 4 is. Because if those end up being more popular, then this is going to be a super important card. If not, I would just go back to 4 copies of this, because you want to guarantee that top call for the early pressure. In regards to the grade 2, because almost all of these cards are not playable on your turn 2, like this has to be on Persona Ride. This isn't really a thing until turn 3 or after. Drilling Angel is doable. If you like, I would recommend if you want to shave off of Fasado for like a second Drilling Angel, just so you can have that like extra put down in the early game. That is completely okay, but really it just turns into like this weird war of attrition where on your turn 3 and after you're gaining so much advantage, you're putting so much power on the board, it is able to make your opponent drop a lot of cards. I think this deck is super fun. I don't see it being, super top tier contender, but I do think it's a very solid deck, and the fact that you can get almost all of this from the deck set is fantastic. Fernbale comes in the deck set. These two don't, but the ride line that comes with it is like solid enough that I think you'll be okay. Fasado comes in the deck set. Gwendolyn is a common, or rare, sorry. So like less than 50 cents. Drilling Angel comes in the deck set. Spiral Cutie Angel doesn't and is kind of expensive, but I also think you can get along fine without it, especially if you keep the Gramgrace ride line. It kind of affects her ability to be good. So if you want to do that, I would recommend cutting her for another copy of Drilling Angel and take a look at the rest of Keter Sanctuary's grade 2 lineup and like think about what you'd want to do, right? Languishot comes in the deck set. This is literally less like 10 cents. I got it on TCG Player. This is about $1. The deck set only comes with one of these, and getting another is like not super expensive. Deck set only comes with one of these. This is important. If you're low on funds, this is the thing you want to invest in, is Locked. Now, it comes with one. You can run 2, I think, at the least. And she was $5 at the time of making this video, so another 10. And then I know this is the more expensive OT outside of the Keter one. You can definitely run the blue one, the blue OT that gets you something from drop back to hand, which is great for getting your Gramgraces, your Gwendolyns, your Fernbales back to hand. So highly recommend the blue one if you're low on funds, and then the rest, comes with the deck. Sanctitude you can get on without by just running the 4th Palladium, and then the rest are just vanillas. So, this isn't, but it's not really that big of a deal, right? You can just run vanillas and be okay. So, yeah, quite enjoy this this build. I hope you enjoyed it too. Leave a like, leave a comment. I plan to do a profile for Silhouette Man, which also came out in set 11. I just like Silhouette Man because it reminds me of the armor cards from Yu-Gi-Oh! And then at some point, I bought a Drajeweled off Root Beer, so he's sending that to me. Once set 13 comes out and grade 4 Drajeweled comes out, I'll try and get a profile out for you guys. But yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks patrons. Thanks Darren, Cole, Josh, Jeremy, GRLE. If you want to support the thing, it's all down there in the description. Thanks everybody. See you next time.